Okay, this morning I'm going to actually give you just a little brief introduction to Project Two because I want you to kind of start thinking about it. And in the past, we've done something that's kind of fun, I think. You guys may not like it, and that's fine. We wouldn't have to do it. But in Project Two, what you're going to do is pick a publicly traded company, and then you're going to do a financial analysis of that. Okay, there's going to be a couple other little things required that I want you to do, but primarily it's going to be a financial analysis. I will tell you that it gets graded fairly harshly by me. Okay, so but I break it down into a lot of different components. You know, first you pick the company, you give me a little background on it, you write an outline for it, you write the intro and conclusion. So I break it down and give you an opportunity to, get some pretty good scores on those things before I harshly grade the final paper. Um, just a little warning, not to scare. I don't want to scare anybody off because people end up doing fairly well in the class, but I want you also to put a little effort into it, and that can start as soon as you guys want it to start, right? So, um, by companies and what we've kind of done in the past, and you guys can tell me if you have an interest or not. In the next week or two, I may have you pick a company that you think you might want to analyze. Okay, like Project One, I want you to keep it simple. And what do I mean by that? Um, trying to analyze General Electric would be nearly impossible in a five-page paper, right? Because General Electric has about 47 different companies that operate under the GE umbrella. Berkshire Hathaway, which I like to talk about, has about 247 little entities that operate underneath their umbrella, right? Okay, really, really difficult to analyze a company that's like that. Okay, there are big companies that are fairly focused. Apple's fairly focused. They've obviously broken into some different things. I mean, they were primarily a maker of phones and computers. Okay, and they've gotten a lot into the cloud. They've got their Prime going on right now, right? Or not, Amazon's Prime. Apple's got some other cloud things going on and different things like that. Um, Amazon is a big company, and that one I might shy away from just because they've become a lot more diverse in the past several years. They've kind of gone from being focused on just selling some things to now they're getting into the cloud, they're getting into the Prime, they're getting into a lot of other services and whatnot. Okay, so I put a couple on here just for the heck of it. Caterpillar's one that I've had a lot of diesel students in the past. Diesel students that take the equipment management option end up taking this class, and so a lot of them have said, "Hey, I want to do Caterpillar." Caterpillar's great. They make heavy equipment. About period. Okay, they make and sell, distribute. They've got a finance arm and they've got a couple other things, but that's primarily what they do. Yeah, Jesse. Nike's probably a pretty good choice. Yeah, but Nike's main business is what? Shoes and apparel. Shoes and apparel. That's about all they do. So that's not a bad choice. Okay. Um, I got Cummins on here. Same thing. Get a lot of diesel students kind of like that. They like to choose that. I put on here another one, WD-40. Picking a small company, WD-40 is actually a pretty small company, right? You guys are all aware of WD-40, right? If it doesn't move and it should, you spray it with WD-40. If it moves and it shouldn't, you use duct tape or something like that. So, okay. So just be thinking, in the next week or so, just be thinking about that. And in a couple weeks, I may actually assign that. That's all until we get done with the Project One. That's probably the only part of this assignment that I'll do in the next week or two, just to have you kind of pick a company. And that way, again, I can look at that company before we actually start the project and say, you might want to reconsider. A couple of don'ts, and a couple of don'ts would be, one, don't pick a company that's a foreign company that does list with the New York or NASDAQ stock exchanges. A little more difficult to get the information, and the information's a little more difficult to decipher. Can it be done? Yes. I want to make it easier for you, and when you do that, it's just going to be a little more difficult. So a company like Sony, no, right? Don't do it. company like Samsung, which is huge. And a lot of you probably have Samsung phones, right? Okay, no? Everybody's got Apple phones in here? You got Samsung or, yeah, yeah. Yeah, huge, great company. Okay, it'd be fun. I'd love to see an analysis of Samsung, but I just think it would be, it's a little more difficult. And they are listed. I think you and I can buy stock. I guess I shouldn't say for sure, but I think you and I can buy stock. I'm pretty sure they're listed on the New York Stock Exchange. They're often listed as something called an ADR, American Depository Receipts or something like that. You know, it's just a little bit more difficult. The other one I would shy away from are maybe banks and financial institutions. And the reason I say that is just because they, you know, what we learn a lot about in finance, and 99% of what we go through here is, you know, you have a product or you make a product, boom, you mark it up and you sell it, right? Okay, or you're a retailer, so you're buying products wholesale, you mark it up and you sell it. Banks and financial institutions make their money in a little different fashion, okay? And we don't really study that a lot. I mean, that's my background. I'll make an exception. I've had some students in the past that worked at banks, you know, oh, sure, okay, you can analyze a bank, that's fine. Okay, I don't have any problems with that. But it's just it'd be a little harder for you guys to wrap your heads around it at this point in time. And so I'd ask you to maybe shy away from doing that. Okay, the only reason I kind of put Microsoft in this right now is they just announced, I don't know if you guys heard, they just announced, I think yesterday, that they've authorized now a $60 billion stock repurchase. In addition, they raised their dividend by 11%. Okay, those are the types of things right there that I kind of want you, that's what's going to happen in Project 2. I kind of want you to start paying attention to. Okay, you might catch the news, you might see some things like that. I'll show you some places where you can look up some things, you know, for a company that you'll get that kind of news and, you know, get an understanding of what's going on. Okay, that's kind of why I want you to start this a little bit early and think about a company, because then you can kind of start following it and look for some news like that. So when they authorize those things, what part of the balance sheet does that affect? $60 billion buyback. What are they going to do? They're going to decrease cash or assets, right? Okay, they're going to spend cash, and they're going to, then we got to decrease the other side of the balance sheet. What's on the other side? You got liabilities and equity. Okay, that's your balance sheet. Is for you guys, your right side, this is assets, this is liabilities, and this is equity down here. Okay, liabilities probably aren't going to change, so their equity is going to decrease then too, right? Okay, that's on the balance sheet. That's on the accounting balance sheet, which we got to be careful and not confuse with the market cap. Okay, two different things. According to this, Microsoft's worth 2.27 billion or trillion. I'm sorry, 2.27 trillion. If we looked at their balance sheet, it's probably a couple hundred billion. Okay, so two different concepts there. We've talked about it a little bit. We'll probably talk about it a little bit more. But so that's what's going to be affected when they do that. Now that's on top of 2 years ago they announced a $40 billion buyback, and 2 years before that another $40 billion buyback. So here in the course of about 6 years, they're going to be returning about $140 billion in the form of stock buybacks, returning that to their shareholders. Okay. In addition, they've been paying a dividend the whole time, which is also multi-billions of dollars that they return to their shareholders every year. So huge, huge. Okay, I wouldn't recommend Microsoft to analyze. Same thing as kind of like Amazon. They've gotten too diverse. They used to make Office. They made a few computers, but they made Office. And that was kind of what they made and sold. But they're getting pretty diversified. They make more of their money from the cloud now, I think, than anything. So might be a little tougher to analyze. What's that? Yeah, oh yeah, Xbox, yeah, that's huge. And they've got a lot of other little ancillary. They bought out LinkedIn a while back and a few other ancillary little things like that. So, okay, so just be thinking about that over the next week or two. You know, I'll probably assign that, maybe not next week, but the first part of the week after that is just come up with a company. If you got questions about it between now and then, just, hey, what do you think of, like Jesse just did a little while ago, what do you think of Nike? Yeah, you know, I think off the top of my head, that's pretty good. You put it down, I'm probably going to look at it, you know, quickly before I tell you absolutely that's okay. But Nike's been, I've had a lot of students actually do Nike in the past, so that's not too bad of a choice. So, and don't everybody pick the same company either. So. All right, any questions? Okay, you guys got some quizzes and assignments yet due today and your project one stuff. Hoping I can come around and look at, again, the starting points and maybe if you've done a little bit of the other stuff on that, so.